So when you have finished your class, sometimes you even need to find, or you are working, but you need to find a new job, or you want to share whatever you have done. You have an activity that you would like to share with others. So how can you do that? And this is when it enters this education portfolio. That is the concept that I would like to present in the following, hopefully, 5 minutes. So the educational portfolio is basically a set of materials that document your experience as a teacher, emphasizing your strengths and providing information about your teaching philosophy. And I think this last aspect is very important, because if each one of you has their own ideas on how teaching should be, and your own strengths while teaching and your own weaknesses while teaching. So you try always to emphasize your strengths and try to avoid including your weakness in the activity. So it's not only when you are creating or when you are defining yourself as a teacher, you need to also think on what are your skills and what are your weaknesses. And why do we need to create a teaching portfolio? And I will describe later in which shape you can present a teaching portfolio. Well, the main or the most important one is, as I mentioned before, to be able to present your pedagogical skills and also to present your knowledge in certain field of education. This is especially important in professional development, or when you are trying to find a new job. But it's not only that. Having a proper teaching portfolio, it can help you to improve. It can help you to self-assess your work and see or reflect on which are the areas that you think that you could have certain improvements, or which are the areas that you consider that you are strong. And then last but not least, and very, very special if we are talking about the maker culture that we have been discussing several times, sharing knowledge. So it's important. It's not only that, okay, you are having a good lesson plans, you have a nice methodology that you can apply, but many times you want to share this methodology or this lesson plan with other teachers, perhaps some colleagues that you are in the schools, or some colleagues that are teaching in the same subject in other schools, or some colleagues from other part of the world, like you are going to do at some point later in this Web Learning Academy. So when you create a teaching portfolio, what are the parts that you need to consider? Well, it depends on of course, on the requirements that you have. For example, if you are looking for a job, perhaps the school or the school district, they have certain requirements. But in general, and if you check the bibliography, you have to include at least three parts: the teaching philosophy statement, some support materials, teaching material, and e-portfolio. And I will cover the three of them. The first one is something that perhaps as a teacher is not you have not considered it, but if you are teaching, for example, in a university, it's something that all of us need to do. In the academic world, we need to do a teaching philosophy statement. And basically, this teaching philosophy statement is just a document where we make a summary of our educational activities, and we provide which are the personal vision of teaching and learning. So what is our vision of teaching? What is our vision of learning? Also, which are our teaching strategies and methodologies. So which are the teaching methodologies that we use? Which are the teaching methodologies that we feel more comfortable with? And also, how are we going to assess the work done with students? Implementation of the philosophy. So in this document, we also need to tell, okay, how we have explained which is our vision and which are our favorite strategies. How are we implementing this when we are in front of students? How do I operationalize my philosophy in the classroom? And then, and for me, one of the most important things of teaching philosophy statement is reflect on how you are planning to grow based on all things that you have reflect here. When you are writing this teaching philosophy statement, you need to think and you need to reflect on your own teaching, and you need to think, okay, what are my needs? How can I improve my teaching? What are the short-term and long-term plans? Should I study digital fabrication? Should I attend this Web Learning Academy, perhaps? And last but not least, method for self-evaluation. So I can set myself in the same way that you set up goals for your lecture, learning goals for your lecture. Perhaps you want to set goals for yourself for the following 5 years. Many of you, perhaps one of the goals is learning more a little, learn a little bit more about digital fabrication or how to integrate digital fabrication in your classes. So how are you going to evaluate that? About support materials is also interesting. It's basically how others evaluate your work. So how, for example, other teachers comment on the work that you are doing. And this is something that we tend to be afraid of. So we are like many times, if we ask one colleague to please come to my class and provide feedback, sometimes we feel, okay, we feel observed, we feel evaluated, but it's a way of improving, or because many times there are issues that you as a teacher don't realize, but someone external that is observing your teaching can realize, and it's an interesting feedback for you to improve your work. Then student evaluation, so the feedback provided by the students, and then attending workshops or professional development. So if you include why you are taking these workshops and what do you learn in the workshop, is a really interesting addition to this teaching portfolio. And then, and this is the topic that perhaps is more important for this Fab Learning Academy, is teaching material and a portfolio. And this is what we are asking you to do. So Liz was discussing before about lesson plan and project plan. Actually, our aim here is to define for each one of the activities a lesson plan that you can later bring it together and include in your teaching portfolio. The lesson plan should include, as Liz mentioned, the course and activity objective, the learning goals, and the assessment criteria. But then you need to introduce, okay, so what are the pedagogical activities, what are the learning activities that you are going to perform? So it usually includes some previous tasks for you or for the kids, for the students, of pre-teaching, what are the students should prepare beforehand, activities during the class, post-activities that are done, for example, to assimilate the content. They need to write some essay, they need to finish, or they need to produce a 3D object with the 3D printer. And also, important aspect that sometimes we as a teacher forget is how we can tell students what they have learned. So student self-assessment. So did they reach the goals? Do we provide some tools for the students to check if they have mastered the skills that they were supposed to master? And then, and it's something that I always emphasize, is the personal reflection on the learning activity. This is what we have been discussing in the beginning. So when you present the activities in the beginning of the class, some of you say, okay, I have more expectations. So this is what I mean in here. When you write your teaching material, when you write the instructions for the activity, you can also write about this personal reflection. So this could be useful, and I will show it later. This could be useful for someone who is reading your material later. Okay, this person perhaps have some issues in this topic, so perhaps I need to reconsider how she or he did this one, so I can succeed or have better results. Then this is a topic that we have been covered in the past, about the teaching portfolio, how you can be sure that you have all this teaching material and a portfolio up to date. And how are you sure that you keep the teaching philosophy statement up to date? So basically, for every class or for every lecture, it's important that you take some notes on where did you succeed and where did you fail, and what are the changes that you can do to the material, for example, for the next session of the class, or even for the next year. I always have a text document when I do my classes, and I'm always writing at the end of each lecture or after feedback from students, on how can I improve the courses for next year, provide more videos before coming to the class, or providing more exercises on this topic. So these kind of things are important. And I think that as a teacher, it's important to have some kind of way of taking notes and providing this feedback. Okay, and then important thing, how to document the activity. I discussed a few issues there, but we don't have time. Perhaps the important thing is that don't try to write when you are documenting the work, and this is also for when you write the working scopes. It's not that much trying to write a recipe, a tutorial on how you have done the things. So it's not focusing on the success. I did this, I did this, I did this, and then the students succeed. But it's more comment about the process or story like. So when you describe what are the activities that the kids did, so where did they fail, or how it can be improved. So the idea is to help others learning from your own mistake. And for this, and this is what I mentioned in the beginning, today, document while doing. You cannot remember that. I mean, if you want to document this kind of process-like or story-like way, you need to have, you need to document while you are working. There are many different tools for documenting the activity. You are going to use Scopes DF, but you can use your own personal website, or you can document your activity, for example, using a slideshow or even a text document. The problem of a text document that perhaps is not that much visual. So a website is always more apparent, and especially when you are building your portfolio for looking, when you are looking for a job, is much more interesting to see something in a website than having to go through different documents or different slides. So